So I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
For all those years of toiling away in Canada, you also had a very steady stream of short films that you made. I think over the course of 12 or 15 years, you ended up with 10 or 12 shorts.
Sounds
something along those lines.
I don't know. Actually, yeah.
It was always kind of like a thing on the calendar to see if the next little update would come out of you, and we'd know that the next film was coming out. And I'd kind of given up hope because when you left here, you were working on your feature. And that was the occasional update was always nice to get.
Right.
And then you went off to Cartoon Network, and it kind of became like the rest of it just sort of went quiet.
Yeah.
And I sort of just said to myself, well, clearly he's being fulfilled enough at work that he's got nothing to channel anywhere. And I wasn't sure if we were ever going to see anything out of you again on the side. And just only about a week or two ago, you cracked out a little bit of info online that there is another short film coming.
So I mean, yeah, I think for me, making my own films was kind of how to learn how to do it. So again, this all comes back to Untalkative Bunny, because I was working. I came from illustration, and then I kind of learned animation on the job, like doing background layout, and sort of working my way in different jobs. But I always wanted to learn how to animate, and I just kind of just did it on my own. So my first film was just me learning how to animate, right? So it was, I was like, how do you make a film? Oh, so I'll go back a bit. There was a guy at Dynamite, Dan Craig, was looking at this videotape of this film. I'm like, what's that film? He's like, oh, this is a film that me and my friend made on my computer. And I was like, what? And it's like, and this is like 1997, right? So I mean, it's not like, oh yeah, anyone could just make this is like software did not exist.
The computers themselves,
They were like, but somehow he had done this, like they just scanned all the stuff in and put it together and made this film called The Untalkative Bunny. And I was like, oh, you can make your own film on a computer. So that just like, oh, I'm going to try and do that, right? I'm going to teach myself how to animate. But I didn't know how to animate, so I thought, well, if it's subtitled, everyone will be reading the subtitles. So I can you just read the subtitles, and it's kind of moving, I guess. And that's kind of how I learned. So I did this like subtitled film, and then from there, I just was like fell in love with doing it. I was making my own films, and so I just keep doing it just to kind of learn. So each film became more ambitious to sort of, oh, I'm going to try this now, I'm going to try this. That coupled with my frustration working in the commercial industry, like all the stuff that I couldn't do, I would just put in my films because no one was paying attention or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like if people say you can't do something, I would just go out of my way to do it, kind of thing.
So we get this string of films out of you that way. Like I said, early days, I would show up at Dynamite and there would be like just a stack of board on my desk, and it would I wouldn't even know what you were working on half the time. It would show up, and then later on, it's just getting those little bit of a tease here and there, and next thing you know, the film is out.
So this is before the internet and blogging. My blogging was just showing you
basically,
stuff,
basically,
right? This is my
That's my office. And then thank God for the fucking internet because that's how we all get to see each other's stuff. So now you're working on something else. Can I ask? Can you tell us anything about it?
About the film I'm doing?
The one you're doing, yeah.
Sure. It's called Clockwork Elves.
Okay.
It's just so again, I keep going back to this, but basically, like my films just tend to be a reaction to something that's going on. So I made this film called The Pig Farmer, which is about this farmer who's a pig, and he gets sort of lured into this basically Charles Manson-esque sort of world where he gets brainwashed into becoming a murderer and all this kind of stuff. And then I get these angry emails from people who are like drug nerds, which I didn't know existed, but people that were, you're portraying drugs wrong, and one of them was like, you are a rube. You should go out into the forest and take ayahuasca and really learn what it's all about. And I'm like, what the hell? So I, Googled this, and I found out this whole thing about like, people go into the Amazon and take this, like natural, like DMT and all this kind of, and I skimmed down this internet rabbit hole of what all this whole thing is. So that is basically what this film is about, is to basically troll this one person who is emailing me. So I'm making a film about that kind of thing.
So you're trying to show that you actually do know your drug shit?
No, I still don't know. Like, it's still completely like wrong. Because I don't actually take. I mean, I used to smoke weed, as you know, which I'll say on the internet because it's not a big deal. But I don't drink. I don't do any drugs anymore or anything. I'm really like I've only ever done weed, right? So I never taken shroom, never taken acid. So I don't know anything about it. So I only know it from movies and stuff. I'm like, but again, I'm fascinated by it, right? Yeah. So it's just fascinating. So I'm kind of like inventing my own sort of like narrative and stuff, and it's just to piss people off. I mean, like, a lot of it is like I get enjoyment out of knowing that I get some kind of reaction out of somebody, you know. And so you put stuff online and you get like a lot of that kind of stuff. And
is there anything that you're exploring in this from a technical level? Like you said, the learning side, because you're getting to do a lot of what you.
I'm just like, no, I think
you're not limited at work. So what are you getting out of this other than pissing somebody off?
Part of it too is just like, you know, getting better in animation and just sort of just doing like, oh, it'd be interesting to sort of like paint that or whatever. And so I just, you know, so a lot of it's like a hobby, right? So I mean, you know, it's how you get better. It's how I ever got better was doing my own films, right? It's the only reason I am where I am probably is from, I don't know what I'd be doing because I was just doing background layout at Dynamite Cartoons in like the late 90s. There was no like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, so it was like the internet just came around and, you know, like just making your own stuff, you get better at it and like, you know, you just become an animator by animating and you become a BG painter by painting backgrounds. Yeah. And, you know, someone sees it and they're like, oh. Like I know like the internet is how everyone gets jobs now, right? Because I mean, I work in the shorts department at Cartoon Network. And one of the things we say to the creators when they come in is like, you know, who would you like to work with? Like what kind of artists? And 9 times out of 10, I get people from Tumblr, right? They get like, I get a folder of stuff and it's like, Tumblr is...
Yeah, well that was the joke about Brooke's job for a while. Brooke Heasling when she was at Cartoon Network and then at Disney, her job was just living on Tumblr.
Well,
like, we just basically, she's talent development for about 3 years there was basically just restricted to Tumblr almost. Yeah. And then come out and meet them at these events. Yeah,
like the days of submitting your portfolio is gone. Like it's like you have to be discovered now. Yeah, I mean,
but that's what you make this stuff for. So I mean, we see. So again, this is we've seen that impact in with the Startoon stuff. We had guys last year who were. I mean, Matt Haynes was an animation supervisor, but no one had ever thought of him as a story guy. Right. And he did such a great job on his Angry Little Cupcake thing. He ended up doing storyboard at his next gig, and he ended up on the Hilda show. Okay. At which looks like he got to do one of those shows that everybody wants to be on. Right, right. You know, so that because he made this thing, people looked at him differently, and creating that opportunity for yourself, and that's sort of like what you were always. I mean, because we did also feel like there wasn't any animation happening in Canada. No. Back when you first started to do that, and not the older animators kind of treated it like it was this arcane knowledge. Right. Sure. Like, that you would never be able to do if you weren't taught.
I mean, I was literally told that by people at the studio. Yeah, like, I'm not going to mention any names. But I mean, they would say, like, I was like, oh, I'd like to learn X sheets. No, you can't learn X sheets. You need to go to school and study animation and stuff. Like, you know, like, and so it was kind of like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to learn it. And I just taught myself how to do it. Because it's not that hard. I mean, really, like, animation isn't that hard to learn. But it's developing your skill is what takes the time, right? The actual mechanics of how animation works isn't that complicated. You know, it's like, you know, moving, spacing drawings and timing. But I mean, like how becoming good at it is the tricky part. Yes. But
well, you said it years ago that you wouldn't call yourself an animator.
No, I still don't. I mean, I don't consider myself an animator because I know that people are good at it and that they devote their life to doing it. You know, like I'm like an animation artist is how I consider myself.
Yeah, like that's it's trying. I work in animation.
Yeah, I work in animation. like say like I'm an art director now because that's like an actual job title. Like I never really had a job title.
Yeah, I can actually throw producer director out there now as a real job.
Yeah. Like I mean, I used to just say I'm an artist, and that never went over well at the border to the U.S. Like they hated that. So.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And it became like I'm an art director at Cartoon Network. Oh, okay, right.
That sounds like something.
So you say you're an artist.
That sounds like something.
Artist means unemployed,
yeah, exactly.
And anyway. But I mean, like, going back to the online thing. I mean, that's how Graham Falk ended up. Graham Falk, who created his own TV show. Yeah. I mean, you know, he was like unemployable in Canada, and then and then it's just like people on Adventure Time was like, hire this guy. I don't think they knew what they were getting, right? Because Graham sort of like had this esoteric style, right, that no one had sort of seen.
It's the most deconstructed kind of
and he was
artwork.
doing this in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. He was doing this style of just like fluid line, kind of casual looking characters that were kind of like, and you know, people were just like, does this guy even know how to draw? Like there was artists on Untalkative Bunny that were like, this guy, you just draw this with his left hand? And I'm like, Anyway, and so he was like unemployable in Canada because he would always say, oh, I'm not professional. So then, you know, Adventure Time, they're like, hey, can you do a storyboard for us? And he was like, oh, okay. And so he would do it, and they were like, this is brilliant, you know, kind of thing.
It would take him like 6 months.
Yeah, but I mean, still, like, it doesn't matter because, you know, they can move the schedule around. Yeah. But like, I don't think they knew that this was like a man in his 50s. You know what I mean? Like that it was sort of, you know, kind of like unemployable in Canada.
So like giant Columbo.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I always thought when I first met him, he was like Boo Radley or something. Like he wouldn't talk.
I just try to imagine like the first day he walks in the door at Cartoon Network, they would
we
just
sort
assume,
of prepped them.
Did you?
To what
Okay.
to expect, like
because I would just assume that like the wrong person showed up. Like it would just be one of those sort of situations.
But he's very out of place. Even I mean, at Cartoon Network, everyone's like average age. Like the 30 is like kind of like above average. If you're over 30, that's it's everyone's in their 20s. Everyone's like, yeah, and then you have Graham who's like this, beaten down when working in animation since the 80s, kind of walks in, and But I mean, it's interesting how like the life sometimes catches up to you.
How is he?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
It's the same.
same.
He's gonna get fired. He thinks he's gonna get fired every week, and
Oh God. Okay.
I mean, he won an Emmy, so I mean maybe that'll make him feel better. I don't know. We'll
On
see.
some level, somewhere deep inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No,
though.
no, never.
He's like, I mean, this is a studio that like paid for him to move down there, paid for his visa, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get fired. I'm like, Graham, you've been on the show for 2 years. They're not gonna all of a sudden fire you now. No. Anyway, he's in animation. You meet these people. I think, like I say, like there's these certain people in animation that you work with that just like would not exist in any other. Like there's like Graham Falk is one of those people that's just like I admire it like the hell out of him.
Yeah.
Like he hates himself and all this kind of stuff, but he is like a unique talent.
Yeah.
So.
It's those crucial, and he was a crucial mentor at a time for you.
No, I mean he
would never.
The reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because I saw Graham's stuff and like was like I want to do that, and then I met him and was just like saw him like his work and just like this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And but the idea that he's functioning in a slick, big American studio.
But I mean, animation artists are the same all around, right? Animation artists are like they just.
Well, that was
they're all just like they don't.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, all those years ago when I went to work in India, it was like they were all worried about me settling in and acclimating to the culture, and they were like, "Well, we'll take you to the studio in a couple days.
Okay.
Get yourself settled in." And I was like, "No, like I need to get in the
Yeah,
get me in the studio now, and
Yeah.
I will understand where I am.
Yeah,
and
that's
I can,
a familiar
yeah,
environment.
I can acclimate the rest of it around." But like I was just stewing in an apartment for 2 days.
Right.
And as soon as I got to the studio, now there were some things there where like people would stand up when you walked in the room because the culture's a little different when a manager walks in.
Right.
But for the most part, it was still they're making the thing I know. We're similar people.
Yes,
they're
the same language of I mean, so it's the same all over. So.
Okay. So I did also want to ask you one thing. Since we're at the Ottawa Animation Festival, your relationship with festivals. What are your feelings? Because we have the internet today.
Yeah.
And you can see plenty of films there. What's the point?
I don't know.
What's good about a festival?
Well, it brings people all around, right? So I mean, it's kind of like a gathering place for people. I think it's good for students to sort of see.
Do you submit films still? Would you still be submitting anything?
Maybe. I stopped because I mean, like, so I mean, back when I started, festivals was the only way anyone was ever going to see your film. So I mean, they were great. Like I would submit to festivals, and it was like you would get accepted. And it's that's like affirmation. It's the only affirmation you're going to get, right? Because this is like what animation is such a like, it's such an anonymous art form, right? Filmmaking, like that doesn't require
the least glamorous filmmaking there is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of work to submit to festivals, right? Like, this is like you have to fill out forms for every festival. Some of them require you to pay them money, and so you have to submit screeners. I mean, now it's probably more online and stuff like that. But I mean, still, the process is you have to like devote a lot of time. And after I was done a film, I was kind of like, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like this sort of afterlife, which is kind of like movie studios, is like 50% of their budget is in this sort of like what you do with it afterwards.
Whole departments for it.
And for me, it was just like it would wane, and I wouldn't be that interested, and it wouldn't get like huge reactions from like wasn't like getting all these awards. So my films were like, it's like, what is this thing? It's like a cartoon, but it's like someone getting killed. It doesn't make any sense.
It's a cartoon, but I'm not laughing.
It's like it's a cartoon, and it makes me feel horrible afterwards. And it's like, because I would go to like these talks and be like, your films are such a dark, and I'm like, I don't know, they're meant to be funny, but I'm the only one laughing. It's like Jerry Lewis. Anyway, but So, you know, you go put stuff online, you get like a much bigger reaction. And so like that was like, oh, just do that.
Yeah, because you seemed to like, you went from like, it's just like, I'll just post it and people can see it. But I mean, by that time you already had, because you've been doing festivals, you've been doing that before, you had built an audience.
I guess so,
Like the internet was, when you joined the internet, there were people out there who would conceivably be looking for you.
Yeah, I was working on this one film, Way for Persephone, and I started like an online like production blog. So I was like, I'll just document my making of it, and I think that helped generate interest in that one. And that was like the first one that I actually produced one on DVDs and sold them. I actually sold a lot of them. I was like, wow, like because I guess people had been following it and stuff like that. So, but and then you like at first YouTube and stuff was like horrible. You couldn't show anything on that, and then it got better and Vimeo and all that kind of stuff, and it's just. I'll just put it there,
So, would you still recommend to people? I mean, starting out, I think, is probably the best use of it, right? Still festivals?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just starting out, like, it's worth trying. I mean, you never know. I'm not gonna say don't do it because I mean, someone might love doing that, and some people might like love going to. I personally don't like going to festivals a lot of times because I feel like I'm not like the type that's gonna schmooze with people. But some people are like love meeting all people and and that's great. But I'm not. I don't get anything out of that. Like I'm just like kind of like too introverted for that. So I mean, the internet's better for introverts because you don't have to directly interact with people. But we were talking about it while we're here and. I like the idea of that the exposure that I get as a viewer at a festival. I think that's the one thing that the internet does worse. Right.
Because we're all curated.
It filters you towards,
Yeah, like I'm gonna go see stuff that I'm not gonna like.
Yeah, and like I used to go to the Ottawa Animation Festival every year, and I would just watch every screening and stuff. And it was great to see that because you see what's out there and what's in the world, and you kind of learn from that, like what kind of doesn't work in front of an audience, right? Like. And sometimes maybe you want to do that because it doesn't work in front of an audience, but like, if you've been to festivals, like there's certain ones where you're looking at your watch and how much longer is this?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then you get you get like a broad range and you realize how international animation is because, the internet, like, if you watch stuff on YouTube, like what's popular on YouTube, it's going to be stuff that's probably going to be popular on TV. Because, everyone, this is a hard lesson that I had to learn is like most people tend to want stuff that exists on TV. Like people may say they want like artistic stuff, but really like people do kind of want particular things.
People are still watching Family Guy.
Yeah. I mean, and I've watched Family Guy and laughed. You know what I mean?
It can be very funny.
But like, I mean, to be honest, like there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that's very artistic, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch it because then you're on the internet, you can just switch it off.
Yeah,
so festivals you can't
the
switch it off.
Audience side of it.
So you have to watch it. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but I mean, basically, like, if you're if you want to do independent films, just do independent films. Just do what you want to do, and don't try and please. If you want to please, like, pleasing. I don't know what I'm saying.
That's okay.
Like,
we can edit this later.
Edit all this out. But basically, for me, is like. Independent animation is good because you can just do whatever you want and no one's looking. If you're worried about what people are going to think, pitch something as in TV or something because that's the thing. Like like part of it for me is like I don't need anyone to like say, oh, you're doing a good job and keep going with it. I don't need that affirmation. I get the affirmation just from producing it. So I produce stuff that is just completely like unwatchable, like probably for people. Like I don't know. Like,
but you've clearly found your fans. Like
and that's the thing. Like if you don't mind having like maybe 10 fans, I don't want a million.
But there's something about your work that has like you're making films that don't fit commercially, sure. But they also you use the language of cartoons.
Right.
Like it's what allows us to kind of come to your films and go, oh, I recognize this.
It's an endpoint.
Yeah, so I feel like I can watch this and it feels very commercial, and then when all of a sudden everybody dies and it's all horrible, then it's like, oh, that wasn't quite what I expected.
I mean, that's part of it, right? It's the bait and switch. Like I like that idea. Like
so you're really just
think they're watching something and then they're like, wait, what?
You're really just the M. Night Shyamalan of the animation industry.
I hope not.
It's got that twist.
Yeah, I mean, the twist is just I don't know. Exercising your own demons and all that kind of. This is like if you're a painter, that's what you would do, or you paint what you want to paint. Right? No one's like you don't have to go and pitch your painting to a committee before you start painting. You just start painting. Yeah. That's kind of like what independent animation is for me. And it finds online. It just finds its audience and stuff, like for better or for worse.
You've got time. You can still chip away.
Well,
at
I don't
stuff.
have time as much anymore. That's the problem. I mean, yeah. So getting back to what you said earlier was like about how like there wasn't any new films for me when I moved to LA. Part of it is I started working on something that was super creatively fulfilling. It was like we were making our own independent film, but they were getting paid to do it, and so that was I didn't even think about. I was just like, I would take the train into work. I was just like, kind of like, I would just have time, and I would just like, oh, this, and those sort of notes and sketches I do usually find their way somehow coalesce into a film, and that kind of coalesced into this film that I'm working on now.
Okay, cool.
But like the Black Sunrise thing was like, one of my big regrets in life is that I actually told people I was working on a feature, because now everyone expects it, and I get so many people like, what happened to Black Sunrise? And it's like, first of all, making a feature on your own is a huge job, right? Even if I was still working, I'd probably still not be done. You know what I mean? Like no one's saying, hey, Pixar, how come like your film isn't out yet? You've been working on it for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like it takes them 5 years, and they have like hundreds of people. I'm like by myself. So that's my kind of excuse, but also like I don't have time. And part of it is like if you let something sit cold for a while, getting back into it feels like it's just like it's kind of rusty, and I don't know, like so. So,
but it's. I mean, I have to ask the questions about it because it's this people want to. Is it something you think you're going to revisit?
Maybe. I mean, it's not even finished being written yet.
Yeah.
So like that was another thing. I just kind of like I would just kind of work on it piecemeal. Like some parts were fully storyboarded, and I would start animating them. A lot of the stuff like the trailers I made was just because I want to animate that part, so I would just make it for the trailer.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I mean I don't know. Like the story, it feels like the story I was telling has been sort of told a lot now. I think at the time I was like really into conspiracy theories and the Illuminati, but this was like 10 years. This is like kind of like the internet was just new, and it just became this fascinating like world that these people lived in. It feels like that's been talked about, and it's so like everyone talks about it, and everyone knows what the Illuminati is. Like I would talk to people about it, and they would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, like the New World Order, like like all this stuff. But now it seems like, so it feels like if I did it, it'd be like everyone kind of knows what that is. So I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes the idea just gets old.
Yeah, it gets old. Like I mean, there's not really like. There's like a zeitgeist that everyone kind of follows and stuff, and so I was sort of doing that just as sort of like everyone else was sort of doing it. So and because it was such a marathon, like all these people could sort of sprint ahead of me and stuff like that. But
so we do have guys like last year. I don't know if you ever saw Nick DiLiberto's feature.
Well, he did a feature.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Novaseed.
Oh yeah,
Have you
okay. I haven't seen it yet though. No.
I saw it at the festival last year.
all right.
Novaseed is amazing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
He had a great little film coming out of school.
Yeah.
That Hercules won.
Yeah.
And so he then went off and worked in the game industry while he was working on this feature that he wanted to make. And I guess he and his wife or girlfriend moved back to Japan.
Okay.
And she got a job, and she basically just said to him like, okay,
yeah.
you do this because you clearly have to do it.
Right.
And like get it done. And I will have a job, and we'll get to that next place.
Yeah.
And so he did. He finished this feature film.
Yeah.
And it is this crazy heavy metal, like it's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. And he does all the sound effects himself.
Okay.
They kept so House of Cool actually got on board to help out at the end to just distribution.
Yeah.
And they did a little bit of post work on it. So they did a new audio pass on it, but
yeah.
they kept a few of like swing with his like the sword. They kept a few moments so that it was still like it's still in there. But no, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. And I mean, I remember when it came out, I was like, I always had my money on you being the first guy to do one of these, And now
I would have been the first if I'd stayed at it.
If you'd stayed in Canada and not gone and had this fulfilled
yeah,
life.
like I think there was no like independent animated features being made like when I started, and then it's become sort of a thing. But again, another thing that I kind of always go think about is like, well, I was doing it without any dialogue. Like I've set this thing up for myself, which I will never change, is that I want all my films to never have dialogue in them, right? Because I have this idea that dialogue is a crutch.
Okay.
Because it's easy to just tell a story like with exposition, right? And it's way harder to tell a story without that,
Okay.
And so that was like this feature, and it was very difficult to sort of to do that. I mean, but again, it's part of like doing your own films, is you get to try that and stuff. So I don't know. I think like. People are asking me. I don't think you'd like it when it's, But anyway, I have a bunch. I have this. I'm probably going to release, because it's almost like the first. I haven't counted, but like 15 minutes is done.
Yeah.
and fully animated and finished. So at some point I might release it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just having the time to actually sit down.
And you still got to do that.
And the big fear is I'm going to sit down and look at it and hate it so much that I would never, you know what I mean? Because I did it a long time ago, and it's just like,
But you're still somebody who, I mean, you tend to be very good about like, because even when you're pushing your film, so many of the reasons why most people don't actually get a film finished is because by the time you get to the halfway point, you know, you're better than you were when you started,
right.
and you commit, you finish it.
Yeah, so we call it get a case of the changes, right?
Case of the changes.
You've seen it so much that you're like, this is terrible. Why? No one's gonna, you know, because you're bored with it, so you feel like everyone is. And so there's that, you get to a point and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go back and redo it. So yeah, you gotta avoid that. Yeah. Everyone has that. I always say, like, you get to a point in the process where you're gonna hate everything and you're gonna wanna stop because you're gonna see how much, but you know, like, you just gotta keep going and stuff.
So that's where you gotta just take the same approach with what you've got of that thing, and just get it out there.
But again, it's easier if you're sort of going at it like kind of like full force, but if you kind of like, if you let it languish a little bit, you might be like, well, I'm so much better now and it's gonna be uneven, and so I don't know, I'll see. Hopefully I can do it, but I'm gonna get this one done, this short done, and then we'll see after that.
See where you stand, because it's been a little while since.
Because I know what's gonna happen. It's like, oh, okay, but where's Black Sunrise?
Oh, totally.
Like, first of all, I don't even understand how people how that has a fan base. Because again, it's like you know, like, it's weird to me.
Yeah.
That anyone even looks at this stuff and is like,
but
I don't do it for an audience. I don't do it for people to necessarily like.
But the people are out there who don't have they don't get to see. Like nothing gets made like that. So there's nothing filling that need.
Yeah, well,
you know, they're you have those fans.
You know, this is like the Canadian and British up in me that I just, you know, you're like, no, you know what I mean? It's like no.
Yeah, I get it.
But you know, like, it's easier to do a short because like you can kind of get in and out and just. But you know, like I say, the biggest regret was. So here's the thing: don't tell people you're making a short or whatever, because you're gonna get it nonstop. People asking you, "How's it going?" And you're gonna tell them, "Oh, I'm still working on it," because it takes forever. And so you want to tell people you're doing it right before you finish it, because then it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on a thing. Oh great," and then you're like 2 months later, done. And then, you know, that lives up to people's, that lives up to people's expectations. Like, yeah, I expect it now. So it's like, if you tell people you're working on something and then like 3 years goes by and you're still like sitting there doing it and you got people asking where it is, it's like, I'm still working on it. You know?
Yep.
So yeah, the way I broke my own rule, because I was, again, this is the early days of like Kickstarter, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe like I could get a Kickstarter. Like, the problem was with that was, again, it was the early days of Kickstarter. I was on Indiegogo, and I would have people tell me, like, I want to support you, but I'm not going to trust that website with my financial info.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was that kind of thing. Like, I don't even understand what this is. Now it's like Kickstarter's a thing, and there's a whole culture around it, but back then it was like, so it kind of like, that's why I announced it, was like, maybe I can do a Kickstarter.
Yeah, you tried it out.
And it did okay, but I mean, it wasn't not enough for me to quit, you know, what I was doing to pay for it. So that was a learning thing. Again, it's like I broke my own rule and it didn't pay off. So don't tell anybody you're working on something until you're almost done. That's a tip, a pro tip.
A pro tip. So anything else down the road for you? I mean, like you've got this art director job in the shorts development or shorts department.
Yeah, it is technically development, but it's the production side of development. So how it works is people pitch, you know, their ideas to the executives, and you know, it gets kicked around like in that sort of like, okay, it gets, you know, there's certain levels of approval, right? So you go in, you pitch your idea, we like it, they commission you to do like a full Bible that would say like, what is the series kind of, and they're like, if they like that, then they commission you to do a storyboard, which is the thumbnails. So you pitch your thumbnails. If they like that, they'll give you some notes, and then you get a production board. Pitch the production board, that gets pitched to all the network executives, and if that is a go, then it goes into shorts department, which is where we get involved.
Okay, so it's already fairly formed by the time it comes to you.
It's not really, because again, these are sort of being written as they go. So like you have boards that are very loose and rough because they're it's a work in progress. Okay. So you know, then Mike, who's the executive producer, Mike Roth, he helps the creator work on the animatic, and then while he's doing that, I helped him find the visual style for the short. And it's kind of like it's like an incubator. The idea is, because it's a pilot, and a lot of the people that pitch to the studio, pitch to the network for a show, they might not have a lot of experience. Some of them might just have done storyboards on one show and have no idea what happens after they hand their storyboard in, or they could be whatever. And so, you know, like the idea is we teach them how to be a showrunner. that's kind of like the mandate, right? So like, okay, so we sort of set the pipeline up as like, this is how you'd work. Like, you don't go out and hire artists as a show creator. You work through the art director, and the art director hires them, and then you give the art director notes, and then, you know what I mean? And that kind of thing. Like, if you casting director, you talk to a casting director about what you want, casting director finds out, you know, like, you're not doing it. Like, and I think a lot of shorts things, they kind of leave you to do it a bit more, and it's sort of like, so they get, this is more like
actual training.
Actual training.
Do the job that,
like you have, okay, now you have to clean your storyboard up, and how does it work shipping? Because like a lot of people don't know you have to write notes down for. So we say, okay, you got to start writing some notes here, and we'll talk them through the whole process from rough storyboard to delivery, right? Okay. We sit with them and retake everything, and so they learn like, oh, you got to. After you hand your board, like we've had experiences where like a storyboard artist will be working with them. Oh, we're doing a design breakdown. Oh, what's that? It's where we pull out characters, props, and we identify it all for the thing. And they're like, I didn't know this happened.
Really?
Like, yeah, they had no idea how it worked, right? So they're like, wow. And like we're going through their board like panel by panel, and they sort of like, it was a big eye opener for a lot of them that were just board artists, because they didn't realize like how scrutinized their boards are.
Yeah.
And it kind of like, they're like, that was like the biggest like learning experience. It made me change the way I think about everything, because I didn't really kind of like, I hand in a rough board and it comes back animated. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so.
Well, that's fascinating, because it's because you'd think it is. We talk about having done all these different jobs in the industry, so that by the time you're actually doing the board again, you know what happens to it, and so you design your board so that it's not going to kill people, and it's not going to.
Right. Yeah. Because like. Both Mike and I have sort of been on all these, so we know what happens, and so we this is what's going to happen, and okay, right, and so so the idea is like, if that pilot gets done and it's like we're going to make a series out of that, they're not like, what,
it's
there's
a
bit of that
manageable
still,
thing.
They still don't know how to make it, because it's an unknown, because it's up to them to figure it out. But at least they know like a crash course in all the steps, right? Like, oh, what happens when it comes back from, how do I call out, what pencil test should I call out for overseas, and how do I call retakes, or how do I talk to a sheet timer, things like that.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway,
do you feel there were any advantages coming out of the Canadian system that you brought down there with you?
Well,
or is it just that you've got a fair bit of experience under your belt?
I think it was like mainly my experience, because I think like TV animation experience is universal, right? I mean, I think there's no difference between how a cartoon is made, if it's made in India, made in Canada, made in anywhere, right? Because the process is the same, right? So, I think it's just my experience. Yeah. But I mean, in Canada we work more digitally now, and it still hasn't really permeated the U.S. They're still very paper-driven. Like they still, like a Cartoon Network, have like sheet timers and things like that. Yeah. I think Nickelodeon, Disney, like there's a lot of. They do sort of, some shows are,
very,
some shows aren't.
Very
so that's very different, because I kind of was in that sort of transition. I started working, on layouts on paper, and they don't do layouts on any shows. It goes from storyboard, it's shipped, and then the layout is done in Korea and comes. So, that's frustrating for me. Like I was like, I need to do layouts, because it's like that's where you figure it out. Like I worked at Spumco, and then like the entire process was layout driven. Like it was all done. Like storyboards were just like, garbage, like stick figures and scribbles, and then layout was where everything came together. So I like that process, but it doesn't really exist.
Yeah. It seems to work okay for you though. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up, because that's a lot, and we don't want to take up any more time. Dude, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you as well for way back with the selection committee thing again. Always helpful. And we'll keep you posted as what we do next. But yeah, so thank you for doing this with us. Do you have anything you want to, where would we find you online?
Twitter and Cross Animation. Twitter? I don't know. Okay. YouTube, just Google.
YouTube is the place for your stuff.
I think if you Google my name, Nick Cross, it actually comes up. Like that's one thing I'm proud of, is that my name comes up first when you Google it. So because there's a lot of Nick Crosses out there.
There's a football player.
There's a scientist.
I was looking for something for
there's a lot of British people out there.
And there was somebody there was a character from a video game.
And there's actually this is like, you can cut this out, but there's an IMDb. My IMDb page has two. It's like a different Nick Cross, who's like a set decorator from Australia or something, and I have all his credits. And I try to get them to change, and they won't change it. So anyway,
take it. Apparently there's another Michael Valakut out there who worked on some beluga thing that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, we're gonna call that done. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.